Welcome back, coders. Hope you're having a great day. And continue coding and never give up. So, in this video, we're going to talk about the use reference or the useRef hook. Now, the useRef hook, what it does, it allows you to persist values between renders. What does that mean? It means that if you have some value and then our component is re-rendered, usually that value can be lost. But the useRef can allow you to keep that value, to persist with that value when something is rendered. It can be used to store a mutable value that does not cause a re-render when updated. So that's one of its uses. It can also be used to access a DOM element directly. So I'm going to show you all these scenarios of how the useRef hook can be used. So now the first one we're going to say, the first one we're going to work on is does not cause re-renders. So if we try to count how many times our application renders using useStateHook, we could be caught in an infinite loop since this hook itself causes a re-render. So to avoid this, we can use the useRef hook. So how does this work? So now we're going to create a component called app. So I'm going to delete that. So we're going to create a component called app, but first we should import our useState. We're going to use useEffect and useRef. So we import, let's say we're going to use useState, and then we're going to use useEffect, and then we're going to use useRef. So we're going to import all these from React. So after importing all this, we're now going to create our function component. The function component we're going to create is going to be app. So this function component should return something. So I'm going to create my boilerplate here, and define my wrapper. So after creating my boiler here, what I'm going to do, I need to pass my app component to be rendered. So I need to pass it here to be rendered. So after passing my app component to be rendered, then I should now put in the different elements. So the element I'm going to first need here is the input element. So since I'm going to use it, I'm going to have the input element. So in the input element, the type of the input element is going to be text. Then the value of the input element is going to be input value. But I've not yet defined my state or my input value, so I should first define my state or input value. So I want to define my state. So the state will be the input value. That will be the input value, and then it's going to be set input value. Now this will equal to our use state, and then the first input value will just be a blank string. Then I'm going to create my count. So I'll say const count, and then my count will be the useRef. Then the initial useRef will be 0. So here we're going to keep the useRef, or the count is going to keep track of how many times this function component is re-rendered. So now let's go back to our input element. Now on our input element, we're going to say an onChange, our onChange event handler. Now our onChange event handler will take in the event. Then from the event, we can say call our set input. Now, wherever our set input is called, the function will be re-rendered. Our app component will be re-rendered because the state has changed. So we shall say e.target dot value. So we shall change our state, our input state to to the value that has been put into our input element. Now we're going to create a h1 that will just display for us the count, or how many times how many times what the component has been re-rendered. So we shall say h1, then we shall say render, then we shall render the count. Then from rendering the count, we shall have to say count dot current. Now, why are we saying count dot current? So what useRef does, useRef, this is what useRef does. useRef is like it sends back an object with a current key and then whatever value here that I passed. So that is what useRef does. That's why I'm saying count.carry. Because useRef sends back what? This is a constant. useRef sends back an object which has current as a what? As a variable. So that's why I'm saying count.current. So if I come back here to my browser, if everything is working well, it's saying set input value not defined, because here there's a set input value. There's somewhere where I use the capital letter for my input value. Here, input value. Here I should put input value. So if I go back, everything should be working well. Set input value not defined here. Should be input value. Save, come back, everything should be working well. So when I type something, when I type something on change, the set input value will be called. When it's called, it will re-render. So when it re-renders, we would like to now display what? We would like to display how many times it has re-rendered. So what we shall do? We shall say this. We're going to use the use effect. The use effect what? Hook. Now in the use effect hook, it takes in a function. So now in the function, what we're going to do, we shall say count.current will equal to count.current plus 1. So the use effect, remember the use effect hook is called every time the component re-renders. So what is happening here is this: when someone inputs some text into the what? Inputs some text into our element, our input element, the set input value function is called. So when the set input value function is called, it changes our state. And when our state is changed, the component re-renders. When the component re-renders, it has to run our use effect, because now in our use effect here we have not defined the dependency of the use effect. So let's go back to our browser. So when I click something, you can see that this component has rendered 5 times because I have changed the state here 5 times. If I delete, it has now re-rendered 6 times. If I delete, it has re-rendered 8 times. If I delete, it has re-rendered 10 times. So if I continue typing, you can find that my component has now re-rendered about, let me make it re-render 101 times. So when I delete everything here inside, you find that my component has re-rendered 192 times. So the useRef can help you to keep track of how many times the component re-renders. Now, it can also help you to access DOM elements. So now here we're going to talk about how the useRef can help you access DOM. elements. Now in general, we want to let React handle all DOM manipulations. Yes, React has to handle all DOM manipulations. But there are some instances where useRef can be used without causing issues. Now in React, we can add a ref attribute to an element to access it directly in DOM. So now we're going to have a simple application. So our app application, let me delete everything and be left here with a boiler. So let me delete this and I'm left with a boiler app. So now this application is simple. When someone clicks on the input tag, I want the input tag to focus. So now to do this application, I'll need to import useRef, which I already have. Then I can say const, then the input element. The input element will just equal to useRef. So after saying that the input element equal to useRef, then I can come here in my boiler and then start defining my input. So I'll define an input field here, an input element. So let the input element type equal to text. Input element type equal to text. Then I'll say the ref will equal to input element. So each element in React has a ref attribute, and if I pass in that ref attribute, I usually pass in a variable which is connected to the useRef. It's going to the useRef hook. So then I pass in my ref what? I pass in my ref attribute. So after passing in my ref attribute, it means that now this input element will be connected to the this input element will be connected to the input element variable via useRef. Now I should make a button that when I click this button, it should focus my what? It should focus my input element. So I'll say button. Then on the button, I'm going to define an on click what? On click event. So on the on click event, I'm going to define focus, then input function. So now I'm going to go back and define that function, the focus input function. So now the button should display focus input. Then I can close my button gracefully like that. Now I should come back here and define my focus input function. Now to define my focus input function, I'll say const focus, then input, focus, then input, const focus input will equal to that, then now on my focus input, now since the useRef can help me to access DOM elements, because I have now made sure that I have made sure that the useRef has access to my input element, because I have defined the ref to be the input element variable. Inside here, I can just say input element. I can say input element. Then on input element, I'll call current. Now the input element in current is like it's like my input element variable. So now I can manipulate it. To manipulate it, I'll say dot focus. So dot focus to focus it. So I'll save. Now if I come back to my browser, everything is okay. When I click focus input, you can see that the focus input has been focused when I click it. So if I refresh, I see it's not focused. When I click focus input, it becomes focused. Now the useRef can also be used to for something else apart from accessing DOM elements. So it can be used now for, you can use it to track state changes, So the useRef hook can also be used to keep track of previous state values. It can help to keep track of previous state values. This is because we are able to persist useRef values between renders. It means that when something renders, the useRef value that can remain, it does not get rewritten or something happens to it. So we're going to create a new app application. So let me remove all this and I remain with my boiler. So remove also inside here, I remain with my boiler. Now since I already imported useEffect and useState, I have to now create my state. I'm going to create my new state. I'm going to say const. The state will be input value to this, and then I'll have set input. So I'll set input value. So equal to use state. So now in this case, the useRef is going to help me to keep track of my previous state, because remember the use state, its value is persistent between re-renders. So then I can say const the previous input value. Previous input value will equal to use useRef. Then the useRef, I will just have an empty string. Then I can now come to my return and I define some HTML codes. So in HTML code, I'm going to first create my input element. So I'm going to create my input element. My input element, the type of my input element will be the text. Then the value, my input element, will be the input value. Then I'm going to define my own change. So my own change will be get access to my event. After getting access to my event, I'm going to set the value, set input value. So the set input value, I'll pass in e.target.value. That is to set my input value. So after setting my input value, I'm going to say h2. I'm going to now display my current value. So I'll say current value. To display my current value, I will just say input value. That's to display my current value. Then I'll display my previous value. So I'll say h2. Then I'll display my previous value. To display my previous value, I'll say my prev value input. Save. Now I'm going to use useEffect. So the useEffect, what it's going to do, it's going to help me to update the prev input value. So call my useEffect. Now the useEffect takes in a function. After taking in a function, it takes in its dependencies. So the useEffect should only be called when the input value changes. The useEffect should be called. Now in the function that is called from useEffect, what this function does, it's going to update my previous input value. So to update my previous input value, I'll say my previous input value dot current should equal to my new input value. Now here, to get access here to my previous input value, I should put dot current. Then I can save, come back to my code and then see. So if I put in a value of 7, you can see that my previous value was nothing, my current value is 7. So then if I delete, you can see that my previous value was 7, my current value is nothing. If I put in 7, then I put in 8, you can see that my previous value was 7, my new value is now 7, 8. If I put in 9, my previous value was 7, 8, my new value is now 7, 8, 9, my previous value was 7, 8. If I put in, let's say 5, you can see my previous value was 7, 8, 5, my new value is now 7, 8, 5, 9. So I've kept track of the previous value with the help of the useRef hook. So that is all I had for the hook useRef. Thank you for watching. If you have liked the video, comment, like, and subscribe. See you in